Welcome to West of Tulsa. I'm CJ Ward. We are broadcasting from Ven-tura, California. By the way, I should say, since you're from Ven-tura, Gabe.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard people say Ven-churra?
Yeah, and they're wrong.
They're wrong.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I've heard it pronounced different ways.
It's
I want to make
Ven-tura.
sure. Ven-tura. Okay, good.
Because the actual
right.
name is San Buenaventura.
San Buenaventura.
Yeah.
Not San Buenaventura.
No, not churra.
Okay.
Like a churro. It's Ven-tura.
Okay.
Tura, right.
I just want to make sure we got that right because...
Oh, absolutely. There are people
right.
from Ven-tura
who say
that-
Ven-churra.
that, they get frowned upon.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
All right. So we got that straightened out. This is West of Tulsa. We got Dan at the controls this morning.
As usual.
As
right?
usual.
Per usual.
I got it right. Last week I got it wrong.
Yeah, you said Gabe was at
Yeah, I
the
said
controls
Gabe was
last
at-
week.
yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
If
Gabe's at the
was
controls Monday through
controls,
Friday. is what it is.
that'd
Yeah.
be scary.
Gabe is here as well.
Yeah.
And now this is a really exciting show. By the way, tip line, right?
Yes.
Go to our website, go to the page, tip line page, fill it out.
Share
Join
your
us here in
story.
studio. Share your story with us. We'd love to have you in studio. Or at least talk about it. And if we're not talking about the right things, let us know. And we'll talk about it, right?
For sure.
Okay.
Or things that you
So
like. We'll take compliments,
westtulsa.com.
too. We like compliments.
We do. We do. We haven't had many
don't
of
get
those
many.
lately. No, I was
We
about
don't
to
get
say,
many
we don't get many of those.
compliments.
All right. So, West Tulsa, go to the tip line page, fill it out. All right. This is an exciting show. Here are the two reasons why. I've wanted to have these two on for a long time.
I remember that you talking about them a long time ago. Absolutely.
So, Orwin Middleton raced for years. Got one of the coolest car stories. Both of you have one of the coolest cars and car stories. He was one of our hot rod legends that we had. We've been talking about that
Absolutely.
show. He
And
was up on the stage.
Helm's personal favorite to shoot.
Yeah.
So
And then Alma is usually behind the camera. She takes great automotive photography, and we're going to see some of her work here in a bit. But
You can laugh, but don't point at my photos.
no, we're not going to laugh. Those are awesome photos. We were previewing them. They look amazing.
Well,
but
thank you.
all right, welcome both of you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Sure,
you.
of course.
So I have to start off with the story.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about the Ferrari Lusso,
the infamous.
1963, correct? 1963 Ferrari Lusso.
Right.
This car has the best car story I've ever heard. This is my personal. I know other people are going to say, I've heard a better story. I don't think so. This is it, in my opinion. So let's start off with how you found the car. How did you guys find the car? Where was it?
Well,
Okay.
wait, first, let's explain what a Ferrari Lusso is to people that don't know.
Should we show a photo for those that are watching?
No. I mean, let's explain it, and then we'll show the photos when we get to the photos. But
Okay.
there's a lot of people that don't even know what a Lusso is.
Yeah, I'd never heard of
okay.
a Lusso.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is a Ferrari Lusso?
Well, the Ferrari Lusso is the very last model that Enzo Ferrari made of the 250 GT model that ran from 57 to 64. And within that GT genre was cars like the 250 GTO, the 250 LM. There was a lot of race cars mixed in there. And when Enzo Ferrari built a street car, he was primarily strictly into racing. He only built street cars to supplement his budget for the racing. And he didn't do a fresh sheet of paper car. He just took a race car and detuned it. He took the motor, like my Lusso, which is a 63, is a short wheelbase Berlinetta that he used the engine out of the 250 GTO, the suspension, the steering, the rear end, all the major bits were the same as a GTO, except the motor, instead of 300 horsepower, was 240 horsepower, so he tuned it down. He softened up the suspension. He just, and then he put it all together in a package that he felt would be appropriate for somebody to drive on the street. Put a leather interior in it. He didn't do power steering or brakes or air conditioning or anything like that. He just wouldn't go that far. In fact, I'm told that the frame or the chassis that my car is mounted on is the same part number as it is for a GTO.
Yeah.
So, which is they were all, the Berlinettas were designed by Pininfarina and constructed by a group called Scaglietti. And the Berlinettas were all 94.5-inch wheelbase, which is the short wheelbase Berlinetta, the short wheelbase California, the GTO, all of those cars being models of the 250 GT. I could go on, but I don't want to put you guys to sleep.
I mean, bottom line, it's a beautiful car, and the sound it makes is just, man, you just want to hear it run and run.
Orwin, are you a Ferrari guy? Like, have you owned other Ferraris?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've owned this one. I bought it in November of 1986.
Oh, so you've had it quite a while.
I've had it quite a while.
Yeah.
And before that, I owned a model called a 330 GTC, which was also a short wheelbase version. It was a coupe. The difference was it was a 4-liter engine. The 250 is a 3-liter engine. The displacement of the engine being dictated by the nomenclature in front of the model. Like, for example, a 330 that's 330 cubic centimeters per cylinder. The 250 of the 250 GT, that's 250 cubic centimeters per cylinder. So when you multiply that times 12 cylinders, the 250 GT is a 3-liter car. The 330 is a 4-liter car.
Interesting.
So,
Have you owned modern Ferraris as well, or
No.
you like the old stuff?
yeah, my first Ferrari was well, I used to buy and sell a lot of what are called muscle cars now, kind of a overused terminology, but and one of them that I bought was a 330 America, which was a 4-liter car by the 330, and it was a 2+2, meaning it had a back seat, and so I bought that car in, oh my goodness, when was it? It was probably 1981 or 2 or something like that, and I only had that car for maybe a year. And then I traded that and some money for the 330 GTC to a young fellow who he dispensed illegal substances.
There's a story.
Yeah, that's
definitely a story.
That's a whole story in itself. Every time I'd go over and knock on his door, he wouldn't open the door, and I'd get halfway down the driveway, and his face would come out. You know, one of those kind of
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, I had that car for about 7 years, and I had that car at the time that I bought the Lusso. For various reasons, I wanted to get rid of the 330, and so I had the 2 Ferraris sitting in my garage at once for a couple of years. And after I bought the Lusso, I found out that it had a rather storied past, in that the first owner was a fellow by the name of Sam Cooke, who was a singer.
A soul singer, right?
Yeah. He had a bunch of really popular songs. I think his first one was "You Send Me," and he was a very, very shrewd, smart fellow, and he bought the car in I think around November of '64. It was interesting that the car was completed in December of '63, and it was delivered to a dealer in Italy. And it must have sat there for a long time, because he didn't buy it until November of '64. And then he was shot and killed in a flea bag motel in Hollywood 1 month later.
Wow.
So he only owned it for a short period of time. That in itself is also a story. So,
But your car was sitting out front idling when the cops showed up that night.
it was sitting, yes.
Let's tell about that story, because CJ's been telling us about that story. So let's hear it from the man himself that owns the car.
Well, I had seen this photo before, but this friend of mine who was a Ferrari mechanic in Monterey, John Baggioli, he called me up one night. He says, "Your car is on TV." I said, "Really?" So I turned it on to obviously the proper channel and all that, and there was my car sitting in front of this motel manager's office with the door open, and Sam Cooke laying in the doorway dead.
Jeez.
Wow.
Because she had just shot him.
Who shot him?
The manager of the motel.
The manager of the motel shot Sam Cooke?
Yeah.
Yes. There's a story behind that. Sam was a married fellow. He had a nice family and a home in Sherman Oaks. The problem that he had is he couldn't keep his fly zipped, you see. And he was known to floozy around a little bit, and so he picked up this, I think she called herself a starlet, in a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, and he took her down to this motel in South Hollywood. And while they were in the room, he was in the bathroom. She split out the door with his watch and his wallet and all sorts of other stuff.
Some of his clothes, even.
Some of his clothes, yes. And so I think that he came out. She was gone. He had his dress coat on, and so he drove it was a fairly large motel, so he had to drive the Lusso around to the office to find out where she was. And he entered the office in a rather heated composure. The office manager was this rather large, overweight lady. She didn't like Sam. She knew who he was because of his legend that followed him around, so she shot him.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Anyway, there's other theories behind that. His family thinks that because he was coming into the recording and managerial business and all that, he was crossing paths with the mafia, and so he was competition. And there's pictures of him with Italian fellows in suits with bulges in their under their that it was a hit. So who knows?
But he was murdered in his car or right in front of his car, or
Outside the car.
outside the car.
She was-
The car was sitting in a parking spot or sitting in the driveway at the manager's office. He went into the office, and that's where she shot him.
Oh, and the car was running because he went in.
Yeah.
Heated,
Yeah.
He
and-
was-
Oh,
yeah.
and he was shot. Okay, got it.
Oh,
Okay.
so
Yeah, so the
maybe he
car's idling out
staggered.
front.
Maybe he staggered out, shot, and died
Yeah,
there.
partially,
Yeah,
yeah.
the photos I've seen online shows him kind of wedged up against like a door jam.
Door jam, exactly.
wow.
That's
Wow.
And
exactly.
the car's right there and outside the front door, and it's idling,
Crazy.
and you can actually see exhaust coming out. And,
Yeah, and you
so
can-
you know it's running. But
And more importantly, you can see the license plate,
yeah, you can.
which I have on the car
Yeah.
To this day.
to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in between,
This story gets better. That's
Yeah.
just the beginning of this. So we have to back up just a little bit because when you bought this car, what year was it?
I bought the car in November of 1986.
Okay, so when you bought the car, you had no clue of the history.
I did not. No.
He had no idea.
After I got the car, I was told that that there was a rock and roll guy that committed suicide in the car. Well, there was a rock and roll guy, Sam Cooke. He didn't commit suicide. He was shot. So he perished, obviously, and the car went back into the Sam Cooke Trust, and then the wife didn't want it, and so it was for sale at Hollywood Sports Cars, which was the West Coast Ferrari distributor. Well, in comes Dennis Wilson, who was the drummer of the Beach Boys, and Dennis bought the car. And interestingly enough, Dennis was 19 and his wife Carol was 19, and this is a story I was told. And he had pockets full of $1,000 bills of hot rock and roll money. They wouldn't sell him the car because he was too young. He had to get a cosigner, even though he had cash.
jeez.
So Carol's mom co-signed for them. Carol, his wife, and so then he took the car, and then probably less than a month or so, Ferrari came out with a new model, a new Berlinetta model. Well, he had to have that, so he bought it, and he gave the Lusso to his wife, and she used it as her commuter car, taking the kids to school, and And she owned it, they owned it for about 6 or 7 years, and then it was rear-ended by some woman in a Buick in Beverly Hills.
And before that even happened, and this is one of the clues, I think, was the hitch, right?
Okay.
That's one of the clues that kind of tipped off that there was something else about this car that was being untold. And as I guess Dennis Wilson buys this car, and he was big into taking his boat out to Havasu or Salton Sea or wherever.
Yeah, he put a trailer hitch on this thing. and he towed his boat. His boat wasn't a big boat; it was a little tiny hydroplane thing. And they used to go to Tahoe and all over the place in this thing. And
wow, it's like the family station wagon.
And they matched, right? It was the boat matched the car. I
believe it did. Yeah. Right. Where the story got interesting is I was part of a group that met for dinner at a local restaurant near us called Petrini's. And one of the people that participated in this was a fellow named Bruce Armstrong. And Bruce used to work for Carroll Shelby at his dealership in Venice selling Cobras. And so Dennis Wilson would come in there looking at Cobras. And I guess one day he came in there in the Ferrari, and Bruce was looking at it. He says, yeah, Dennis Wilson would come in the Ferrari, and it had a trailer hitch on the back. So I thought, how many of the 350 Ferrari Lussos made ever had a trailer hitch on it?
Bingo.
That's probably
Bingo.
the only one.
So that
eyewitness.
That started me on another quest, and this good friend of mine named John Stein, who's an automotive journalist. He's worked for Car and Driver and Road and Track, and he was the editor of Corvette Quarterly and all this, and he writes stories, interesting stories when they come along. Well, he was on this like you wouldn't believe. And so it took years, decades to find out all the missing pieces. It had been after they sold it, they being the Wilsons sold it, it was purchased by somebody up in the Bay Area who liked it because it had the trailer hitch, because they could haul their dirt bikes around.
Jeez.
And then following that, it went to Alaska to this dentist, but it was the transaction and the handling of the whole thing was handled by this fellow named Ralph Stefano, who was a professional engineer in Alaska, and he developed this team called the Ferrari Alaska Racing Team. And if you dissect what that is, it's FART is the
fart. Love fart.
So Ralph was quite an interesting fellow. Anyway, then it was purchased by this other fellow that lived down in Palos Verdes from Charles Tinsley Canal, who was the dentist, but Ralph Stefano handled the whole thing, and it was shipped down. And that was Ron Johnson, I believe his name was, and he restored the car. And then he sold the car to this fellow Meyer. Forgot his first name, but anyway, Meyer was a program manager at Hughes Aircraft, and he was a program manager, what they called black programs. Black not being anything racist, black mean that they were top secret
Sure.
black programs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so the fellow that worked on the car for him, who was also a black program manager, told them that he was going to retire from that, and that he would be thrown to the wolves to the local Ferrari mechanics around Los Angeles, and he said he wasn't going to do that. So then he sold it. I bought it. And then that was in November of, like I say, 86.
Wow.
So
yeah, and so after the car was in the accident, it was in the accident when Dennis Wilson's wife was driving it, right?
that's correct.
So she's driving it. She's rear-ended,
Yes.
and the car kind of goes through the whole thing you just talked about,
Right.
and you end up with it.
Well, yeah. After she was rear-ended, it went back to Hollywood Sports Cars. They repaired it in their body shop or whoever they were doing body shop business with, and then they sold it to the fellow in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And I have all the names of all these people and their addresses, and a lot of them, of course, when I started really looking, trying to piece this together, they were either not there or not alive anymore. And so I won't go into the story of how I found out about all that. It was very long and laborious, but I got a certified build record of the car, and so that's part of my history of the car.
When it got rear-ended, they repaired it. Is there any evidence that the hitch was there still?
Yes. Yeah. The frame where the hitch was welded, there's still little holes where the hitch was removed, and I just left them in there because I thought it was kind of unique.
Yeah.
The hitch wasn't anywhere around when I got the car.
Sure.
Wow.
Oh, sweetheart, tell them how we got to meet Carol.
Oh, yes. Along through the story of this, Alma here, we got a little 55 T-Bird for her I guess it was
color.
for her birthday.
Ooh.
And she was riding along with the car with the top off with one of her girlfriends in the car, and the Beach Boys song comes on, fun, 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 till a daddy takes a T-Bird away. And your friend, what was your friend's name?
Terry Cooper.
Terry Cooper. Terry's a real piece of work in her own right. But anyway, she said,
She's very funny.
yeah, she's very funny. And so she said, I have a girlfriend that was married to one of the Beach Boys. And we didn't know who or what or anything. And so then we hooked up with her and found out that it was Dennis, who was the drummer. And she was still friends with Carol.
And to this day.
To this day. So we got a hold of Carol, who by this time had been living down in an area in the San Fernando Valley. And she came up. We told her about the car and all of that, and we'd like to get together with her. So she came up with her husband and a couple that was friends of theirs, and we met them at not Ponte but the one across Via Vai. And they were there when we pulled in, and there was Carol, and her husband was a hobbyist photographer. So he's blowing off a lot of shots of her with the car and everything. And I said, would you like to drive it? And she says, yes. And so I flipped her the keys. She gets in it. And she said when she got in it, it was like a deja vu. She put the key in the ignition, she fired it up, and she drove it around. She had been there before, obviously. And we came back in the parking lot, and then we had lunch with her and her husband and their friends at Via Vai. And so and we've connected with Carol because of this many times.
Wow. And from reading John Stein's article,
yes,
it sounded like that moment for her was pretty emotional.
I think she got emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got very emotional.
Wow.
It took her back in time.
It was a fun meeting. It was a really fun meeting her and seeing her drive around. I thought she really knows her car. Knows the car.
It's kind of crazy when you think about something that was mechanical, made in Italy, and how many lives it touched and connected and so on. It's kind of like there was a movie. It was like $20 or something. It was like, someone picks it up, they spend it, it follows.
Right.
Yeah.
That Ferrari has an insane story. All the people and all the crazy situations it was in.
Well, I said that they'd made 350 of them, which sounds like a lot, but they were all handmade cars. In other words, you can't take a fender or a door or a hood off of another model and put it on my car because it won't fit.
Sure.
The bodies of those cars were literally pounded out by hand over tree stumps and sandbags and stuff. The whole thing was a cottage industry, basically.
Sure.
So in a way, you could say, well, each one of them is a little bit different, even though they all look the same. And when she got in this car, she apparently knew that this was her car.
Mm-hmm.
And so I rode with her, I won't let anybody drive it. And so she takes off and she's going through the gears and shifting it up and down. And I mean, it's not a straightforward car to drive because it's got a clutch in it that's either in or out that I put in when I did the motor. And so she knew how to handle everything and do everything. And she got back in and yeah, she was teary-eyed over the whole thing.
Wow.
Does that car have a non-synchro gearbox?
No, it's got a synchro. Well,
okay, so you don't have to double clutch it or anything like that.
Well, but
or do you?
Let's say it's a European synchro gearbox.
Okay.
It isn't like a Borg Warner T10 or a Muncie or something like that.
Got it.
You have to double clutch and rev when you go into first, and if the box is cold, you have to do the same thing in second.
Okay, so she knew how to handle it.
She knew how to handle it. Yeah, she knew how to do it. Yeah.
After all those years.
Yeah.
It's a very nimble car to drive. It's very easy. Well, it wasn't
Yeah.
not the new clutch though, but before, I mean, he's let me drive it. That's how I knew he was in love, when he let me drive his Lusso.
That's a big
No guy lets any woman drive.
That's true love.
This is true.
True love.
This is true.
It is true.
Yes.
And I thought, oh my God, he's in love.
That's when you knew you had him, right?
What did you think when you saw the car the first time?
Well, he picked me up when I actually. He picked me up at the
Train
train
station.
station, and I didn't know he. And I was hiding. He was hiding behind the arches when I got off the train, and I'm looking around.
Which is another story.
Anyway, so all of a sudden he comes out from behind the arches, and then gave me a little hug and a little kiss, and then walked me over to the car. And I was very impressed. I thought, what that car has, because I was a car girl before. So I thought, oh my God, that car has such beautiful lines. And I got in the car and I put on the seatbelt, but the seatbelts are like a plain seatbelt where you kind of click them together. No, you don't click them together. You I don't know how to describe it.
They're
But it's
they're genuine Ferrari factory Irving airshoot seatbelts.
and most people struggle with that
Yeah.
seatbelt. I got in the car, snapped it on there. He goes, wow, that's a first.
Wow.
I thought he's in love.
Impressive.
He's already in love.
A car girl.
A car girl. Yeah, I was a car girl before him.
Well, the process to figure out the story behind your car must have been fun. Because it was a little bit at a time, wasn't just you found a little bit here, a
Yeah.
little nugget there. Talk about that process, because was it John Stein who helped you go through it, or did he just write about it when it was done?
Well, he helped me in bits of it, and there was 4 very distinct things about it that were very singular. That you could say, well, that's an old car and stuff like that happened. But 4 of them together, it became more and more and more unlikely that they could all be. For example, I ran into the guy that brought it down from Alaska, Ron Johnson, and he said, I got one time when we were up in Monterey for Car Week, he says, I got something for you. I said, what's that? He said, he hands it to me, and it's the horse that normally mounts in the grill. And the horse had 4 little holes drilled in it. And I thought, what is this all about? And suddenly it flashed on me. I got a video that the Beach Boys made. It's of old home movies. And one of the home movies is taken at one of their houses, and you could see the front of the Lusso, and it's got the license plate mounted in the grill.
Wow.
And I thought, they had to drill holes in the horse to get the license plate mounted in the grill.
Oh man.
So that was the first thing.
Wow. And you have video showing that. That's awesome.
I do.
Wow.
I do. And so this friend of mine said, well, I mean, it was an old car. People did all sorts of crazy screwball things. And I thought, well, maybe. But then the next thing comes. On the rear end of the car, they have a number on that was stamped on 934, which means that's the ratio of the rear end. Nine teeth on the pinion gear, 34 teeth on the ring gear. But I knew it didn't have a 934 gear in it, which would have been like a 3.7 something. It was much lower than that. It was like a 4-to-1 or so. the tach and the speedometer, I calculated there would have to be a lower gear. So that couldn't be the right thing. Well, it turns out in talking with Carol, found out that Dennis changed the rear end ratio to pull the boat.
Get more pull.
Get more pull.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's
number 2, right?
We've got holes in the horse. We got a rear end ratio that is not what it says on the stamping, because Dennis took the car to Hollywood Sports Cars and had the mechanic change it. And then I mean, it's just, so it goes on and on and on and on. But anyway, I collected these 4 things, and then I thought, well, I also knew that it had a trailer hitch on it, because of the holes in the frame.
Yeah.
So that's 3 things.
Yeah.
And so the transmission in it was changed from a regular 4-speed to a 4-speed with an overdrive on it. And there's a book written about the Ferrari Lussos of all about those cars, but it had a couple of variations that were a little different in there. And so mine was one of the 2 that had that variation. So we're getting down further and further and further to the point where it had to be, there's no mathematical probability that this could be something other than what it is.
Yeah,
Right.
Sure.
So then the license plate number that was in the deal with Sam Cooke laying in the doorway, and
The police scene photo.
the police scene photo, yes. So
And it matched. Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, that's how I put this all together, and then I got hold of Marcel Massini is his name, who is the fellow that keeps track of every single Ferrari ever made and where it went and the serial numbers and all of this, and he sent me a printout on my car. I had to give him $2,000 to do that.
Oh, jeez.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know about that, huh?
No, I did. And so I got this Marcel Massini report. So that pretty much cast it in concrete right there.
Well, in the Massini report, does it show that the car was originally from the factory in silver?
Yes, it does. But the car was stripped to bare metal, and the last color that you read the report, I can say.
Yeah, I do my research there.
You must do this for a living, CJ.
They got the fellow that brought it home from Alaska was the one that restored it, and he stripped it to bare metal. And the last color they found before they got to the factory primer, which is very unique in its color and texture and all this, was actually a dark green.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
So the factory reports weren't apparently always what they were cracked up to be.
Was I know from reading John's article, and if you haven't, if you want to know more about the story, go to John Stein's article. Was it Auto Week?
It was in Auto Week.
Auto Week,
yes.
yeah.
Maybe we could link it in the
Yeah, we'll do that.
video.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
Put a link to it.
He did such a great job.
Yeah.
Writing that story. I mean, I read it several times afterward. I was like, wow, so well put together.
Yeah.
And not easy to go step by step and tell a story like that and lose the reader.
Right.
Yeah, he did a great job. So if you want to know more about his car, go check out that article.
Well, when you do an article for something like Auto Week, they typically chop it way down so they can put it all on 1 or 2 pages. Yeah. Well, they devoted many pages to this, and they didn't cut anything out. I guess because John is pretty well known in the industry of being a very good writer. And they sent out a photographer that took a whole bunch of pictures of me driving the car and sitting in my garage. And I don't even remember how many pictures they used, but there was probably a dozen pictures in the Auto Week article.
Yeah, no, it came out really, really well.
What color was the car when Sam Cooke had it?
red.
Red. Okay.
He's the one who had it originally painted the red color.
Well, it could be that it sat in the dealer. The dealer was named Lombardi in Naples, Italy. It must have sat in there for a long time, and maybe nobody bought it because it wasn't red.
And so they painted it maybe?
They painted it maybe there, or maybe Hollywood sports cars
Maybe they
painted
did
it.
it,
Who
yeah.
knows? I don't know.
Wow.
Great story, though, isn't it?
That's an amazing
It's a
story.
great story.
It's
It's
such
a
a
great
right. You
car
have
story.
how many celebrities connected to it, plus a murder and trailer. That's to me impressive. They trailered it like as a station wagon.
Yeah.
And they probably put a ton of miles on the car. I would
Yeah.
imagine too.
I've got another story. It was also featured in a magazine called Thoroughbred and Classics, and this was quite a few years ago. And I went to Car Week every year from the time Steve Earle did the first vintage race, and I'd drive up there in vintage cars and stuff. And so I was driving out to some friend's house for dinner, and this guy pulled up next to me in a Honda 2-liter, one of those little 2-liter Honda sports cars. Mm-hmm. We took off and we had a drag race because I'm a hot rodder. And
I got a drag.
And there was two guys behind us that saw this whole thing, and they followed me. And I pulled into a market parking lot out in Carmel Valley to get a bottle of wine to take to my friend's house for dinner. They pulled in there, and they waited for me to come out because they had never seen anybody in modern times in a drag race in an old Ferrari.
True. Yeah. Who would drag race an old Ferrari?
Yeah.
So, and it ran pretty good. And so
Who won?
I was gonna
I
ask
did.
that.
I ran with this guy a few times, and I blew him off every time. And so, the more I would run it, the better it would run because it would, carbon under the valves.
Move it up. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were fascinated by this, and they were from Britain, and they had the heavy British accent and all of the funny little one-liner thing. Well, they wanted to meet me at this bridge down on Highway 1 the next day. This was a Sunday evening thing, and they wanted to do an article on it. So I met them down there. However, that night I went to a Gooding auction in Pebble Beach, and my friend was selling a 400 Super America Ferrari that was actually Enzo Ferrari's personal car.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And so while I was there, I very carefully parked between two little trees and backed up in a place where nobody could get to it. Well, somebody caved the side of my car in. Well, not caved in, but they
Brushed it.
and dented it.
Oh.
They had to actually try to do it because you couldn't do it by mistake the way I positioned it. So I saw this, and I drove it down there, and the guys from Britain, and no big deal, won't shoot this side of it, So it was also in Thoroughbred and Classics.
Wow. Well, your gut must just drop out of your stomach when you see that.
Oh, it was it was disgusting. There was also a lady that backed into it, and when you were down at Carpinteria, I was parked at the curb, and this lady in this chicken coop condition Toyota comes and backs into it, and scrapes the left rear quarter of the car.
The quarter panel.
And so I came out, and I saw this, and this woman, she was an elderly woman, probably younger than I am right now, but anyway, I said, "Do you realize what you just did?" She says, "Yes, unfortunately, I do. That was a mistake. I'm terribly sorry, sir." I said, "Do you know what this car is?" She says, "Yes, I know. It's a 250 GT Ferrari Lusso." And I said, "What?"
She was too busy looking at it. That's why she did it.
Knew what she ran into.
Yeah.
She got instant credit points. She got brownie points. She got brownie points for knowing what the car was.
Oh, my gosh.
So I wound up taking it, my insurance guy came out, looked at it. That's when I wound up painting it from red to the burgundy red it is now. I took it to a spot, and they did a beautiful job on it. And as I was putting it all back together, because we took the doors and the glass and everything out of it, I was putting it back together, and the last thing I was going to put on it was the bumpers. And I sat back and looked at it, and I thought, this thing looks awesome without the bumpers on it. So I just left them off.
Wow.
I like the bumpers.
You like the bumpers?
I like chrome.
Well, speaking of which, we were talking about this car. I can't believe we've taken this long. Let's look at it. Let's show a picture
Yeah,
of it.
let's pop it up.
Because
I mean-
I'd love to see the picture of it.
I
So
guess I
we're
should have
talking-
driven it down after all, but I wound up not doing
We'll
that.
have you back next
Well, that just
week.
means you're going to have to bring it back. Or we'll just come pay you a visit and come take a look at it at your place.
There it is right there.
There it
So,
is.
Wow.
So if you're listening on a podcast, you're going to have to go to our YouTube channel to see it.
So is this a custom color, or did you pick a factory color?
Well, they offered back in '63. They offered dozens of colors that you could get Ferraris in, and this was not real common, but kind of common. It was called Rosso Rubino Metallica, which means ruby red metallic, and the metallic had to be of a certain granularity, not very, very fine. I took it to some friends of mine that owned a shop out in Goleta called Dent Experts. And that's where they painted it. And so they didn't have a color chip for a 63 Ferrari at the paint shop. So we tried different colors, different types of metallic, all sorts of, and we started off with a Mazda Miata color.
Really?
Yeah. And so Dave, who owned the body shop, he added toners to it and, fiddled around with it, and the metallic was most of the metallics weren't right, and so I had to pick a metallic that was fine enough for that era a car, and we played around with that quite a bit. So he painted it with a 2-stage, which the color coat is like a flat paint, and then he shoots over after a certain period of time when it cures to the right point, shoots a clear coat over it. And then that's what gives it its gloss and its depth. And then you can color sand the clear coat, which you could not do if it was an old style metallic paint, because it would, come out mottled. Mm-hmm. And so then that's how we got it done. And so this friend of mine that a Ferrari guy that had the Super America that I mentioned earlier, he said, "You're going to paint it? God, that's going to be expensive." And I said, "Well, how expensive do you think it's going to be?" "Oh, it's going to be $100,000. And I said, $100,000? You got to be kidding me. Why would this be $100,000? It's a tiny little car. He says, "Well, that's just what people pay." I said, "Well, they're a bunch of idiots." They did it. We got it. I had it at a car show in Carmel that they used to do on the Carmel Avenue, and all the Ferrari guys come up and they start looking at it. I said, "Wow, this is beautiful. Wow, who did it?" And I said, "Dent Experts in Goleta, California," and they charged me $13,000. And then they all started looking for defects,
Yeah,
of
of
course,
course.
which proves what a bunch of lightweights they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, the paint's beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that it's Miata color, because a couple episodes ago we had a bunch of Miata owners on the show. One who owns R&R Motorworks in Goleta.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Miata paint or Mazda paint, how like it's so great, but it sucks when you get in an accident because a lot of paint shops can't paint that fine of a metallic or whatever. So it's interesting that you chose that metallics. That's really cool. I think that's a great story. To me that's a real flex. It's like, oh, you paid 50, 60, 100 grand. I paid 13.
Yeah, and that included the chrome work on the bumpers, and there's not much chrome on the car, but the headlight rings and all. There's a bunch of little nicky-nacky stuff there.
Did they go down to bare metal too, or they?
No, they used a primer that was brand new on the market, and Dave told me, doesn't matter what's underneath, nothing will come through this primer, but they have to shoot it and they have to cure it in a certain way for a certain period of time for it to do its thing.
Wow. How long ago did you get the car painted?
Oh my God. It was 15 years ago. I guess.
So the paint job is now $100,000 from $13,000
Yeah, right.
with a market adjustment.
Right.
I do like it without the bumpers. It does look good. You see that with a lot of Alpha like GTBs.
Yeah.
They'll take the bumpers off and
We got more of
cleans
that
up.
race look. Speaking of which, Dan, can we go back to the first picture of the Lusso? Because I noticed something interesting is the composition of this photo. You have a comparison between the old and the new.
Right.
Because some might consider the Lamborghini, there's a Lamborghini in the background, the Lamborghini a beautiful car, more beautiful than the Ferrari. I disagree. I would say that I prefer the Ferrari.
Well, that's why I took that angle, because I want to capture the car in the background. I come Transformer cars because they look like Transformers.
Sure.
Anyway, so I thought that was a perfect angle because I did move around. I thought, no, I don't want to showcase the other car. I just want to showcase part of it.
Yeah.
So you can compare the difference in the lines, and it's just so much prettier.
So Alma, you took these photos.
Yes,
Yeah. So you're a bit of a car photographer.
Yes.
Photographer in general.
If there's a car event going on in the Santa Barbara region, Alma's there.
I'm sorry.
Well, this is an interesting subject because car photography. As Dan being a photographer, myself being a photographer, I don't do cars because cars require a certain type of eye, a certain type of composition. I'm not good at it. Dan knows how difficult it is to shoot vehicles.
Really
you
tough.
did plenty of shoots with vehicles.
Yeah.
So I can have a huge appreciation for somebody who's just not just passionate about it, but takes good pictures, but also a story behind the picture. That's what I love, the story behind the picture. Obviously, we're about stories here. So when you compose your photos, especially of cars, you're always trying to tell a story with your car?
Well, I try.
pictures?
A lot of times I'll just photograph a car just because the car is beautiful, the lines are beautiful, and but a lot of times I'll try to photograph a car where you can compare it, like the one we just saw, or I'll try to catch because it's got the light. I'm a natural light photographer. I don't do studio work. And so I'll capture the car with the light hitting a certain, it's just really emphasizing a part of the car. So I look for those little shots for composition, but it's a lot of fun. Cars don't talk back at you. and better yet, they don't blink when you say, eyes open, they don't blink. And usually the owners are very grateful that you're even photographing the cars.
Yeah.
No, I like cars. Like I said, I was a car girl before.
Yeah.
And so I just brought in my car girl experience with my photography experience and start playing around. And I found I like this a lot.
That's cool.
Oh, it's
So
easy.
you guys connected, over cars. One of the things you connected over when you first met?
Well, we met on Match.com 22 years ago.
Oh. Wow.
It was new. It was fairly new. Been around for about a year. And I had a profile. He did not. And then I was out of town that weekend in Las Vegas for some esthetician show. And when I came back, there was an email from him, and he says, "I know you don't. I live more than 50 miles away from your designated radius, but if there's chemistry, there's nothing that can keep us apart." I go, "Oh my God, she's so romantic."
Great line.
Wow.
Yeah,
Great line.
I heard of quite a few of them. He took me to the house. He says, "What took you so long?" I walked through his back door. He turns around. He says, "What took you so long?" I go, "Oh boy, it's getting hot."
Wait, so when you guys first met, it was at the train station? That was the first time you guys ever met in person?
where he's hiding behind the arch.
And you didn't know he had the Ferrari?
Well, he had told me about the Ferrari, and my ex-boyfriend, also being a car guy, he said, I said, he has a Lusso Ferrari, and he said, "Oh, he's a keeper." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he showed me the cars, and I had
I didn't know
appreciation.
that.
Oh, well, he
Well,
knows JJ.
there's a little more to the story.
Right.
When I would go on Match.com, I didn't post a profile because I didn't want people calling me, and you would go on, you would put in your radius that you're willing to go travel to, and I thought, well, around Santa Barbara, Ven-tura area, and so it was 30, 40 miles, something like that. And I went on one time, and I must have put in the wrong radius because all of a sudden, instead of 6 pages coming up or that there would be around in the area, there was like dozens. And I thought, oh my God. So I started looking at this, and there were people that lived in Pomona, and so I screwed up. I didn't put in the right number. I thought, well,
Oh, you might as well look.
So then her picture was on the second page, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, she's really cute, you know. And
This is 22 years ago, so things were different.
Nothing's changed. No.
So I contacted her. She lived in Toluca Lake, and you know, and so and up here also, I might say that 6 pages would show up, but a lot of the women that were on there, the photos were 10 and 20 years old.
Yeah.
And
Mine was current.
Yeah.
most of them were cruising for guys that had a lot of money,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I ran into a lot of that. Some of them wouldn't even show up because they would probably if they wanted to spend a couple of $100 on the internet, they could find out everything about you, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's good. She was honest. She's posting. It's like listing a car. It's like, here's the picture of my car when I got it 20 years ago.
Yeah,
when in its
right,
right state, right?
right.
So you see the car, you're like wah wah, you know.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because we have a guest on our last show who's a friend of the show now. She's technically
She's been on 4 times.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Christina Jimenez, who started a car speed dating app or
that's
you know
a good
page,
idea.
and they're really trying to promote it. This is an interesting story too because she's trying to connect car people, you know,
Dating
really?
for car
Dating
people.
for car people.
Dating for car
This
people,
is a
yeah.
great, is a great example. She should take a page out of this because
Yeah.
I think this is really really cool because you guys chatted for a few minutes before you guys had met, I would imagine, or
Yeah, well, what we did is we emailed back and forth for, I don't know, a few days, and then we just both decided, well, we need to just meet each other, obviously. And so Alma said, well, you can come down and I'll show you around. I said, I know all about L.A. I lived there, you know. I grew up, well, not that I really grew up, but I was...
did a lot of racing down there.
I did.
Yeah, I remember from the hot rod night, which
Yeah.
we'll talk about in a little bit here.
Yeah. Anyway, she wound up coming up on the train, and so I met her at the train, and you know how the train station has those arches, you know, and
Yep.
I was kind of hiding behind the arch because I wasn't sure what was going to come
my
off of the
photos-
train.
Yeah, he wasn't sure if my photos
Well,
were current.
with my experience with the gals up here that were 10 and 20-year-old photos.
Yeah.
So I see her, and the train's a long train. You don't know where she was going to be, and so the train was mostly unloading, and so I saw her jump off of the train way up towards the front, and she was looking around for me, and so I walked up to her, and the closer I got, the better she looked. So I thought,
See, this is like a 1940s like film noir. Or
Yeah,
something.
it
This
is.
Like, I met her
It
at the
is.
train
No, very
station.
romantic.
it is, yeah, it is.
It is. I love it.
VintageMatch.com.
Yeah, I like
I have
it.
to tell you one story, though.
Sure.
You know, because I've dated a few men in my life, and I was always the chameleon that would change my spouse or whatever to suit them, and it got to a point where I said, no, I just want to meet a guy who's going to accept me for who I am, and take it or leave it attitude. And so he took me to he was pulling he took me to the Four Seasons for lunch.
Ooh.
We had a 3-hour lunch, and he stops me. He says, because I'm talking, I was all nervous, you know, it's my first date, and all fidgety, and he says, stop. I go, oh. He says, can I ask you a question? He says, do you always wear this much makeup? And I said, well, no. This is the second question got better. So anyway, I said, no. I said, well, because what happened, the train stalled, and I didn't have any reading material. So what a girl does is you freshen up the makeup, and I freshened up the eyelash mascara. So when I got off the train and sitting there, he says, "Do you always wear this much makeup?" So by the time, because what happened, by the time I arrived, I looked like Tammy Faye Baker. I literally did look like Tammy.
Layers and layers.
Oh
huh?
my God! And the eyelashes were up to my eyebrows.
Wow.
I said no. He goes, but I thought it was a sweet question. And then he says, "I got to ask you another question." And I said, "What?" He says, "Are you always like this?" Like nervous and chatty, and I'm going, oh, gee, what's the right answer? Yeah, I did want a guy who will accept me for who I am. And I said, yes. And he says, don't ever change. I go, yay! I met them. He's such a romantic.
Yeah, a little Casanova here.
Yeah.
Right?
I tell
no
you this,
kidding.
or we're going to be calling you for advice.
Dating. Oh, yeah. He'll
So I
share.
need to get a Ferrari Lusso and lunch at the Four Seasons. That's the secret to
Yeah, exactly.
That's secret.
Yeah,
getting
that
it
works.
Got it.
Proven to
Got it.
work. Proven to work.
Yeah.
Orwin, did you know that she was into cars before you guys had met in person?
I don't think so. Because being into cars was always, I figured because of that, I had a Dayglow orange sign over my head that said, stay away.
No, you didn't. I never saw it.
Well, also, it came time to where she had to jump back on the train if she was
Oh,
going to.
yeah, that's right.
And so I just, I didn't want to let her go. And so we went out to dinner, and I wound up driving her back down to Toluca Lake.
Oh, that's
drove
love.
me
That was my first
That's
question.
love.
Is did she take the train because you did not want to take the Ferrari down to Toluca Lake?
Well, no, I had other cars I could have
No,
driven. Yeah.
Oh,
I
you wanted-
actually, yeah, because we talked about it. I'll come down, and I said, well, you know what? I thought about it. Can I take? I'd rather take the train. It's more romantic.
No,
and
sure.
he said he had suggested the train. I go, oh, I'll take the train.
Yeah.
So I did, and that's how
Oh, cool.
okay.
we
That's
met in
awesome.
person.
But you're right. I would not want to drive the Ferrari down to Los Angeles
yeah.
for obvious reasons.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't blame
then
you.
That must have been love if you were willing to take the Ferrari down to Toluca Lake. You know.
Well, at the time I had a Cadillac Eldorado touring coupe, and so we went in that.
Oh,
down.
well, you
and I wound up.
we went
I
home
wound
and he
up-
switched.
Oh,
He
okay.
swapped out the car.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
wound up driving her down to the train station in Burbank, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went over to her apartment where she had this little dog, and I came in. The little dog was.
Just a little puppy.
Yeah.
So he was all excited to see me and see him.
Oh, that's funny. You know, one thing we should pop up are your photos. Because,
Oh, yeah.
here we
Let's-
go. There we go. So this one, just tell us what this photo is.
Okay, this is when the motor was on a block, and I walked in there, and there was something about it. I thought, wow, that's kind of a pretty shot.
Artsy. It just has that
arts-
artsy look
and,
to it.
yeah, and I thought, well, it was boring without, what do you call it, a pool? What do you call that?
Well, what that is part of a tie down
Tie
strap.
down. That's a tie down. So I said, okay. So I just hung that over. And I thought, oh my God, I love that. So I captured the shot, and then in post processing, I highlighted I lightened up the Ferrari, and I just thought it was a great shot. I can see that shot in a guy's smoke room.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
It
I
could be
mean,
somebody's office.
somebody who's pulled out many motors. I thought, well, I've used the ratchet strap to pull a motor out of a car.
Right.
So that's what first thing I thought was, the motor must have been out of the car.
Yeah, it was
Right.
hanging on the on the other side, and I said, no,
Yeah.
it's got to go in front of
Yeah.
the Ferrari, next to the Ferrari.
Yeah, very cool shot. Love the composition.
And again,
Well,
if you want to
thank
see
you.
these photos, you have to go to our YouTube channel to see these.
yeah, because
Which we suggest you do.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
So, this is a nice one. I love
this one I was photographing for the Montecito Motor Classic, and they had the media show at the Polo Grounds, and they had that Ferrari, the Transformer Ferrari, and there was a gal walking around with her horse, and I kind of flagged her down. I said, "Hey, can I take some photos with your horse?" And she said, "Sure." So that she did something. The car stood up, and I snapped the shot. It was just
Bam.
one of those. I didn't plan it. She didn't plan it, but I snapped the shot.
The horse just did that on its own?
What?
The horse just got up on two.
Well, she did it. She did something to kind of stand him up.
got it.
Yeah, she had to stick and.
But you
and
still only have a second or two to.
You're right.
Snap
No,
off
I
a
didn't
few
know
shots.
she was going to do it.
Look at
So-
the manes all like waved out.
Well, I did that, but I actually gave the horse a little nip and tuck because he's kind of a little heavy on the tummy section. And it was blocking the car. I said, okay. So then the mane, I've kind of exaggerated that a little bit. So I give the little. He doesn't look like that, but
Oh, that's okay. It's not a dating profile picture. picture.
No, it's not. But,
No.
The Mr. Horse would have been disappointed if he saw that.
And this turned out to be, they put this in the literature for the Montecito
Yes.
Motor
Oh,
Classic.
yeah. That
I remember
became-
seeing
cool
this.
shot.
and also in the Montecito Journal, and
Yeah, that's
it
right.
became a very popular.
That looks like
show.
Now-
I need to send that to Ferrari.
Now in Ferrari,
I know. I should.
You should.
I should change the car. No. I just thought it was a nice, lucky shot.
well, in
Lucky
Ferrari,
shot.
does Ferrari call that? Do they have a name for that pose of that horse? Is
Well,
it
the
the rampant
the
stallion?
the horse,
Prancing horse? Prancing stallion?
It's called Cavallino Rampante,
Okay.
and
You know what
that's
that translates to?
I haven't a clue.
Okay.
Cavallino's horse.
Well, I know rampant because Colt, Colt firearms, their logo is the rampant Colt.
Oh, okay.
When you see that little, on a Colt like a 1911 on the handle, it's a similar pose too, right? You have a Colt? I don't have a Colt.
I
It's a
do.
similar
Cavallino
pose though.
means,
I do.
horse.
I have a
prancing
1911.
horse.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll
they
look
call
at
they
that.
call it a rampant Colt, I think, because it's supposed to be a younger horse.
Okay.
But I've heard rampant stallion. I don't know if that's tied to Ferrari or something.
Well,
so I don't know.
when I saw that the Enzo, that's an Enzo called an Enzo.
Yeah, yeah.
And the horse, I thought that would be something that I would think Ferrari would want to have.
Yeah, yeah.
But also,
Very cool.
Alma is not just a car photographer. She has an eye for virtually everything that's very artsy, and she has the ability with her computer, with all these little things that she's
Sliders.
made, where she can enhance the photos.
Yeah.
That's where I love the post editing, because you can change the photo. And like I said, that photo didn't look like that, and so yeah, it's one of my faves.
You've been doing the photography for a while,
Yes.
so you're back in the film days. You were shooting film.
No.
You didn't shoot film, so you're only a digital girl.
Yeah, I've been
Okay.
doing it about 15 years. Or
Okay,
more. No,
okay.
18 years.
So you're in the digital era.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I
Because
did
your
I-
photos for being digital, to me, they have a very nice film-like quality. You haven't over-sharpened them, which is my pet peeve when you see over-sharpened digital,
I've been
ultra
guilty
clean.
of that, but I
It's
corrected.
like, but I mean, looking at this, it's got a nice, soft yet clear quality to it, which I like. You
And I
don't
like
see.
the contrast with the background.
Yeah,
with
it's
almost like
beautiful.
sun setting back there.
That's a great shot.
It
I
is.
it's just a lucky shot.
It
I
was-
did not.
That's how I shoot with luck.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I never put down the camera.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I put down the
What do
camera.
they say? Is it shoot first, ask questions later?
Yes, that's,
That's
me. Oh,
it,
that's
exactly.
me. That's me. No, this is a
Now,
beautiful
who is this
car.
gentleman?
This is
Roger Drew. He's a friend. He's a Cars and Coffee friend.
And
We
this-
have a little Cars and Coffee at the Upper Village. It's a bunch of old guys telling lies every Sunday.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for that.
and Roger's one of the guys. And this is an exact, and by exact, I mean this is not a fiberglass body with a Chevy V8. This is an aluminum body with a Maserati V8 of a 450S Maserati, which was their sports racing car of '57. And
Beautiful car.
He had it scratch built down in Argentina.
Wow.
And this was,
Beautiful car.
I remember seeing this. He had it at the Montecito Motor Classic when it was out
Right.
at the Polo
Yes, he
Grounds.
did.
Right, right.
Beautiful.
So did they hand form the body on this too?
Everything.
Really?
Beautiful,
Wow.
You know,
beautiful
this car-
work.
this property was a beautiful property, and now Carpinteria, is it or?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah, that's
what is the building
Yeah.
behind?
And-
is that
and-
is that a residence or?
No, it is. And I
Okay.
was looking because I wanted him. I photographed the car, and then after that, I wanted to photograph him with the car. And I was looking around, and I saw through the hedges. I saw, wow, that looks like a Tuscan villa in
It
the
does.
background.
It does.
So I said, let's just Maserati Italian, Tuscan Villa Italian. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, let's just
Yeah.
put the two together. So that's when I framed it in front of that spot, and I just think it just really adds to the car.
I mean, that could be in Italy. I mean,
And
that photo could have been
It can,
taken.
it can,
Yeah.
and that's what I was so excited. When,
No, that's cool.
And then, of course, the coloring and everything afterwards. But I love that photo. It's just because it's
great
such,
photo.
Oh my God, this is one of my favorite
Yeah.
events.
So tell us about this shot.
Now this is the truck, the race of gentlemen, and this was in Pismo Beach a few years ago, like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
A little bit more. And they finally brought it to California, and we went down there, but unfortunately it was pouring rain the whole weekend. And which is, and they have the old motorcycles, they just recreate the old races from back in the, 20s, 30s, or whatever. Anyway, so that shot was, I actually snuck in behind behind. I actually got close up behind the start line where these guys were getting ready to start the race and line up, and I thought that being it is an old time photo look. I gave it that old time photo look, being that they're emulating the old races from that time in that era.
Great shot. Great shot.
And I got some really good ones from the close-ups of the motorcycles, but it was too many to bring. But anyway,
Even the cars in the background are old.
Yeah.
This thing could have been taken, 1935
I know.
or something.
I know. When I
like that,
first saw it, I was like, it almost looks
yeah.
totally vintage.
What this is, it's a group that is they do racing on the beach, and it's a drag race for an eighth of a mile.
it's in New Jersey.
And they started their home where they do this is in New Jersey. Well, the fellow Mel, he wanted to do an event out in California, so he came out to California and he dealt with what it takes to do that in
on the
California.
beach
can't imagine.
of all
Yeah,
places.
yeah, right. Anyway, you can go on YouTube and you can see their events that they do in New Jersey, and they specialize. The genre is it has to. There's a lot of hot rods, but they have to be prior to 1954. They can't run modern engines in them, and it has to be done in a flavor as it would have been done back before the war, very early 50s, late 40s, and the motorcycles are part of this too. And the type of race it is, again, is a drag race where it's a two or three or four people go off at once.
That's really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And this one too.
I love that shot.
Yeah, that's
and
a
I
great
don't want. I don't want to. I just want to keep it in color because I just love the yellow and the background and the Oilers have been around forever. What does it say? 1947. Yeah. So that's why I took that shot. And
Is that a Santa Barbara or a Central Coast
No,
Club?
this
or?
is in Pismo Beach. The same race.
Same
the
one.
truck,
But the
truck.
Oilers is from, where are they from?
They're from New
CC.
Jersey.
Oh, that's in New
CC,
Jersey.
yeah.
It's the same group. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool. That's
But
cool.
I just like the background. And I photographed this. I used a telephoto lens. It's-
Beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. And of course, you have to get the flag girl.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I have some really ones where she's actually she dropped the flag and she's like airborne. I mean, she looks like she's 10 feet up.
That's cool.
I think she was a gymnast at one point. Yeah, no, because I can tell it's the way she was jumping
Yeah.
and
I like a Harley Davidson service.
Yeah,
isn't that cool?
right.
Yeah, I thought it was just a good composition.
That's
with
cool. It
her
is.
walking away with the flag.
Yeah.
Most of these guys that are
Oh, there you go. There's
that are
flag-
participating
flag in there.
Oh, that's
came
another
from New
flag.
Jersey. This is a New Jersey show that they came out here and did it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, is this the same group on this
Yes.
shot?
Same group.
Okay. Now, here, where before we were rolling, you were saying this was on Cabrillo?
Cabrillo
Barbara.
Boulevard.
Cabrillo
I
up
can
in
see the
Santa
trees right
Barbara.
there.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that they even did that.
Cabrillo's,
people
That
were.
Santa Barbara proof.
Cabrillo's over by the pier, right?
Yep. Right along the beach.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
along the
Cabrillo,
beach.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been down there. Okay.
This is actually right in front of the Hilton Hotel.
Okay.
That's cool.
And they had to put up all the K rail, as you
Yeah,
can see,
yeah.
and that a friend named Seth Hammond did that for them, and they were. The city council was springing surprises on them every
In
day
Santa
or so.
Barbara? I can't believe
I
that.
know.
That's unheard of.
I'm still surprised. They never came back, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well,
This
they
one-
came back, but they do it at a little airport out in Rubadube, which is near Riverside, called Flaybob, and they were welcome with
What
open
language
arms.
is that?
I don't know. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's an hour by telephone from here. Though.
Well,
I don't think I want
Well, if
to
you've
go.
ever been to Rubidoux, you understand.
Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot.
They're behind the times a little bit, which is thank God.
Which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's definitely not Santa Barbara.
Yeah, this guy. Going back to the other shot, it was the flag guy was very funny, very charismatic, and he got up there a little airborne, but
Yeah,
not as
some air.
airborne as the gal.
That's
Wow.
But still, I thought it was just. I like the smoke coming up. Well, I did have to took in a lot of smoke on that shot, but that's okay. It's part of the job.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and one of the things we talked about during the Hot Rod Legends show that you were a part of was that stretch of beach along Cabrillo back in the old days was an old racing spot. That's
Yeah.
where they would do some of the drags
Yeah.
right along the beach there.
Right.
So a little bit of history
Yeah. That's cool.
for
you.
that spot. Yeah. All right.
Oh, I actually took this with a cell phone. I mean, the quality of cell phones nowadays is unbelievable. It's
crazy.
We were in front of the Shoreline Cafe at Letter Beach, and I saw this
Ledbetter.
There's Cadillac, what is 60?
59.
59, okay. And I saw the car and I thought, well, that's interesting. And I came around and I said, wow, that's a real rust bucket, in my eyes. And I liked the fin because I was kind of attracted to that fin because my twin sister, back when we were little girls, she ran into one of those fins and cut her eye open, her eyebrow open.
I believe it.
So I remembered
Yeah.
that car very well. So when I came around and I saw the tail lights, I just thought it was a really nice composition with
Beautiful but dangerous car parts.
Yeah, they are. And I showed it to my sister. Goes, I remember that.
Yeah.
To me, it's
Anyway,
the
she-
Grateful Dead sticker that makes this shot.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, the Grateful, yeah.
Yeah,
And I
that's
liked the
cool.
rust and against the red and
And the angles, the lighting,
just
it's all
everything.
that-
It was
yeah,
just like
so many fun
And you know
things.
what? I didn't do a lot of editing on this photo.
Yeah.
I think I just brought up the color a little bit but I didn't do a whole lot of work. It came
That's
out
cool.
of it came out of the camera. I think I cropped it. That's right. I
Yeah.
did crop it because it showed a little bit too much. But that was a fun photo.
That's a cool
On this
photo.
little gal, she was. There were also the Trog, and she was the only female racer. And they came from England, her and her family. And she was so happy.
You can tell.
Well, I got to photograph the girls.
Yeah.
So I photographed her. She's looking away. I photographed her with the 7 telephoto lens. And just caught her when she was so happy. I thought, oh,
cool.
my goodness.
Great shot.
Yeah, I just thought it was great.
Yeah, it
and
is-
being
it
a
is,
gal,
yeah.
it's not too often you see gals racing nowadays.
Yeah,
So.
pure joy right there.
Oh, there is. It really. Oh, and this is what
The woman behind the camera.
the girl.
Yes. Yes.
They-
Self-portrait.
Believe it or not, I took this off a hubcap.
Perfect.
Yeah.
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 Who needs a mirror when you got old hubcaps?
Well, that's why I like chrome.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
girls needs a mirror everywhere she goes.
Well, you got the bling going there in the shot. You got a lot of bling there on the wrist.
Well, this
Yeah.
was at the Pomona show, the big in
The
January.
Grand National?
Yes,
Oh,
the Grand, yeah.
Grand National Roadster Show.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was indoor, and this is one of the indoor places where they had a lot of cars, and I thought it was kind of a cool.
That's cool.
Well, I had to put on some jewelry to go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
A little bit of bling. You got to have some bling.
yeah.
No, great photos. Thank you
Yeah,
for
those are
sharing
very
those.
cool.
Well, I have 200,000 more, but I didn't want to bore you guys.
We'll have to have you back a few more times to see all those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But-
Wow.
You
So-
know,
A lot of
you were
fun.
talking about drag racing, and I don't know if you realize this story or not, but drag racing, the first sanctioned off-street drag race happened here at Santa Barbara, and it was at the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that at the show.
At the Hot Rods
At the
show,
Hot
yeah.
Rods
You
show.
guys
Did
talked
you?
about that up on
So
stage.
speaking
Yeah.
of drag racing, we'll just I'd like to end the show on drag racing because I like drag racing. But your story was pretty interesting about all the time that you had spent drag racing. And it seems like nothing's much has changed because you were drag racing your Ferrari
Yeah.
in Carmel. How did you get started in all the drag racing?
Well, I've been into high performance cars, and a measure of high performance is acceleration. And so I was always reading car magazines and what they would do 0 to 60 in a quarter mile speed and ET, and I was accumulating data is what I was doing. And when I became old enough to have a car and drive and do all that, I just carried that desire onto the street, you see. And so I've got a 61 Corvette that I bought at Harryman Chevrolet in 1964.
Wow.
And I've probably been in 1,000 street races in that car.
Wow.
Still has it. How many years later?
60. I had a
60.
60-year anniversary.
What's in the what do you have in?
I was gonna say which motor.
Yeah.
It's well, it doesn't look modified. It's got wider wheels and stuff on it, but it's got a 350 small block Chevy that has got a set of experimental Edelbrock aluminum heads. It's got headers. It's got a Rochester fuel injection on it. It's a 4-speed. It's a posit traction, and it runs 114 in the quarter, which is pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I don't have tires on it that would hook the power to the ground because I don't want to break anything.
Yeah.
So, but if I was willing to do that, I know that it would probably run 12 flat or something like that with that speed.
Yeah.
It's quite fast.
Have you had that set up in the car for a while with the 350 and the 4-speed?
Yeah.
Was it factory 4-speed?
No. Well, yeah, it's factory 4-speed. It was a factory 283 with dual quads and a solid lifter cam. I also did quite a bit of vintage racing at Laguna Seca and Sears Point and Coronado and Willow Springs. And the cars that I raced was the first one was a 59 Corvette that was a car that Washburn Chevrolet in Santa Barbara owned that Bob Bondurant drove.
Oh, wow.
And then the car that I have now is a 57 Corvette that's basically a carbon copy of the 59, but I haven't raced in 15 years. It's just sitting in the garage.
With about Bondurant Corvette, you go back to Ford v Ferrari, and you'll see that car.
Oh, yeah.
In one of the scenes as they're
That was
near the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that was actually the first. That was the second car because Washburn got a Stingray Coupe Z06, and he was from the factory, and they were going to let him have it if he could get Bondurant to come out of retirement and drive it.
No.
The car that I have is a 59, and that was Bondurant's first professional ride, and he won a lot of races with it.
So being
more
that you
history.
are a Ferrari owner and a Chevy owner, and I know it's not Ford or Ferrari, but you have both. You have a Corvette, which is kind of like the American sports car, iconic
Right.
sports car, and a Ferrari, which is world sports car. Obviously, there's two different cars. How
Right.
would you compare the two? Because you have both of them. I know I won't ask the question which one's your favorite, although you can tell me if that's the case. But
Well,
Which-
the Ferrari, the Ferrari that I have, that was a $14,000 car when it was new. That was a boatload of money in 1963.
Sure.
Corvettes at that time were, I think the base price was $4,500, and if you really optioned them up, you could get them up $5,500. So they do, speed-wise, they kind of do the same thing, but in a very different way. The Ferrari is, the Corvette was bred up from a passenger car. The Ferrari was bred down from a race car. So the Ferrari, with its suspension and chassis and engine and everything, it handles in a much more manageable way. The Corvette, you could get in big trouble real quick with it, but you have to know what to do to counteract that. And so they can each go very, very fast, but in a very different way.
So it depends. You get up in the morning, I'm like, I'm in a Corvette mood. Or, I'm in a Lusso mood.
Yeah.
So that's how that goes, huh?
Well, I don't go anywhere approaching the way I would drive on the racetrack.
yeah.
So you can just kind of get in the car and dip-de-doodle out 192 and go to Cars and Coffee and
Right.
sit around, like I
Nice
said,
mellow drive.
sit around and tell lies, you know.
A lot of lies.
Being that you growing up did a lot of street racing and track racing, now you've got a lot of kids who kind of do the same for obvious different reasons. What would you say to somebody coming up that's into the same things you were when you were a youngster?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how much money you want to spend and where your priorities are and all of that. But to vintage race and be competitive, you have to have something that is not necessarily driven on the street, because it becomes so specialized that the Corvettes, there was allowed modifications that you could do that made them pretty unstreetable. The Ferraris were more streetable because they were race cars that were built to drive on the street. So it's a whole different deal, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of not the same in a 2-liter Honda.
No.
You know.
Which he's beaten before.
The Honda 2000, yeah.
Yeah, the S2000.
It's a fun car.
Yeah,
Fun car.
I had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah. Any other questions for the Middletons while they're here? Or
I got a bunch, but we don't want to make this a 10-hour
Maybe we'll
show.
make it. We'll do a
Part 2.
part 2.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll
romance.
have you guys back.
Well, we've got to
Murder.
go see the Lusso in person. I got to see this car.
Yeah.
So we'll have to either come pay you guys a visit or you'll come visit because I really want to see that.
Well, save
car.
up your
I
lives,
also
and
want to
then
see
you
the
can
vet.
join these guys.
I want to see the Corvette too.
on Sunday morning.
Well,
Yeah, we'll come tell lies with you
now you live down here.
in Ven-tura. Yeah.
Well, we live in Santa Barbara. We got down here really in about a half an hour, I think.
It's a short drive.
Yeah.
Well, and CJ lives in Santa Barbara, so we just saw him last weekend up there. So,
I'll knock on your door early some morning and say, "Come on, we're going to Ventura. We got to show the guys the Lusso."
Okay.
yeah, we can go to the
go.
Montecito
There
or
you
Santa
go.
Barbara.
You can
Cars
do
and
that
coffee,
too. Yeah, that's right.
So,
All right.
The one that we're at is in the Upper Village in front of the market. There's a grocery store, and we kind of camp out there for a couple of hours every Sunday.
maybe we'll come pay a visit, CJ.
It's almost like they're almost hiding because I've gone up there before and I've seen them kind of sitting up in the corner.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of the folks are in the lower part down by Manning Park.
Right.
These guys are quietly sitting up there drinking coffee
Yeah.
and talking. I'll cruise by sometimes and stop by. It's been a while since I've done that though, but
Yeah. Well,
it's a nice spot.
We tend to not be into being around crowds. you
Yeah.
know? And so
Perfect.
not that there's anything wrong with the other group. It's just that we're interested in different things.
Sure.
So.
Well, we can take your Corvette or they can bring something old.
Yeah.
We don't want to come in one of my cars. We'll go in
We'll go in the
older
old
cars. Yeah,
Corvair. Yeah, okay.
Don't bring the Tesla, Gabe.
I won't bring my rotary either. I won't bring the rotary.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Boy, it was really.
Thank
I'm
you.
So happy that we had you, both of you, on to talk about your photography and the Lusso and
I love photographing
Great story.
Automotive events.
yeah.
We had
or motoring.
And you just did a
just-
great job with it. And
It's fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't do weddings, but now I'm leaning more towards events and automotive photography. And like I said, easy peasy,
And you
fun.
love it, and
And
you
I
love-
love it.
yeah.
And then I can't wait to go home and play with the photos because that's
Cool.
the fun part. Yeah.
We
Thank you.
covered train travel, romance, murder, rock and roll, photography, horse weight loss. We covered a lot on this one.
yeah.
Covered a lot.
The
Nip
horse
and
weight
tuck.
loss one is interesting.
Yeah.
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 Well,
and I
I
do
could-
have a website.
Oh,
Plug
tell us-
away.
Yeah,
Plug
tell us
away.
what's your-
Here's a cheap plug. It's almarosemiddleton.com.
Yep.
AlmaRoseMiddleton.com.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of the photos that you've taken. Probably thousands of them on there, right?
Yeah, if you go into the website, then it has galleries and it has a drop menu and then drop down menu, and now all you have to do is just hit on motoring, and I've got
There you
a
go.
few
We'll
shots.
put a link to it in the
totally.
description
Oh,
on the
that'll be
video.
it.
Yeah,
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you for coming on.
It's fun.
It's a delight.
Yeah.
And we
a lot of
finally
fun.
heard the story from the man.
Yeah,
that has
yeah.
cars. CJ's been talking about this for months. So we're
Well,
finally.
I can ramble on for a long time because, as I say, I have more absolutely worthless bullshit in this head.
Yeah.
If you ever have us back, I'll tell you the story about how I started my car with pantyhose.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's a good cliffhanger to leave for the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
wanna
it.
hear
No,
that.
seriously, I did, but I'll save it for another time.
Okay.
You guys have to write this down because that's our next question. That's the
Orange,
first question.
Just so you know, if you haven't seen any of our previous shows, we're all full of bullshit here. So you fit right in here. We have hours and hours of bullshit, and we plan to shoot many more hours of bullshit.
Yeah.
So please bring
For
as
sure.
much as you can.
We'll have to go click on your tip line.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
There's another
Here's a
cheap
story
plug.
idea.
Yeah, here's a story.
We'll have to come back in the T-Bird.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
my
Oh
T-bird. I
yeah.
love
Your
my-
Tiffany T-Bird.
Well,
Yeah.
it's Thunderbird Blue, but I call it. Well, I had a Tiffany box, and I put it over the. It was in the garage. I put it on the hood, and I squint my eyes. It almost disappeared. I thought
It's that
a-
close.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
that close. Yeah. If you squint, yeah.
My wife would probably agree with you. That's her favorite color. So
Is it? Oh,
yeah,
Tiffany,
for
yeah.
cars. That's
Oh,
her,
yeah.
So
It's a beautiful car.
It is.
And it's. I know my husband hates when I say this, but from bumper to bumper, the lines are. My car looks very long and very sleek, and it's actually 1 inch shorter than his Corvette.
Really?
Yeah, I know Corvettes, you seem like a young, but
Yeah.
no, it's actually shorter. But it's just the lines that make it look. I know he hates it when I.
Well, it's a
compare
bit-
that comparison. But
I
care.
don't hate it at all. I'm not suffering from an ego problem.
Well,
You're just a Chevy guy, not a Ford guy.
No, no. I've got a '72 Pinto
All right.
that's got twin side draft DCOE 40 Webers and on one side, and a header on the other side because it's got a cross flow head. It's been lowered. I've autocrossed the car.
There you go.
An
Wow.
autocross Pinto. Dan's all excited.
no,
Wow.
it's a fun little
That
car.
was my
to
first
drive.
car. Was a Pinto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my first too.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a marvelous car. I bought it back in 1976 from the original owner.
Wow.
And the reason that I bought it, it's a hatchback,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a musician in a country rock band at the time, which is a whole
Sure.
other story. I could put my pedal steel guitar in there without having to disassemble the thing,
Yeah.
which was a major deal.
Wow.
What color is it?
It's kind of a root beer metallic brown.
Okay. Mine was white.
Okay.
Nice little sprinkling of rust, but in the quarter panel.
Mine was green.
Green. Okay.
We'll have you on for. We'll do a Pinto show.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got to do a Pinto show, right?
And I love it because we can talk modified Pinto.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hot,
There's a
hot
lot of
rod.
those. That's my favorite kind. is a
Hot rod
modified
Pinto.
Do
Yeah.
a Ford show, the Pinto and my Thunderbird.
Thunderbird. Yeah.
with
Absolutely.
pantyhose.
The pantyhose, yeah.
We're definitely gonna talk about
We
that
want,
story.
it's
we
a
want
good
that
one.
story.
So anyone's listening to this, you have to wait till the next one because we're gonna talk about pantyhose in the next one.
Yeah.
for sure.
It'll be a how-to video.
What was what was your car that you did the pantyhose thing on?
It was a Audi 100 LS.
Oh God.
Ooh, even better.
Oh.
No, it was.
Audi 100 LS.
Well, you know, I didn't know about how bad they were.
That-
It was a
that's-
blue one.
But a lot of people like that car. There's a cult following for that car. So.
You
Oh,
get
is
you
it
get
really?
you become on a first name basis with every flatbed owner in town.
There's another show, the most unreliable cars of history.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
not true because I couldn't call anybody. It was midnight when I was stranded. And
guy
I'll
that-
save it for next
Okay.
week.
The guy that I bought my Pinto from sold it and bought a 100 LS. And so,
Wow.
anyway,
Well, there you go, honey.
there's a connection.
Can't be that bad.
Oh,
All right, so that is an hour and 26 minutes of bullshit.
Yeah.
Hey, all right.
Right?
Congratulations.
Yeah, we filled up a good hour 26. Thank you again so much. Orwin
Thank you
and
for
Alma.
having
we
us.
appreciate you guys joining us. And
yes, thank you.
so don't forget, follow, like, subscribe. Go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay. And our website, and go to the tip line page. Please fill that out. And we would love to hear your story. We'd love to have you here in studio.
Love to hear your bullshit too.
Love to hear your
Yeah.
bullshit. You can, everybody out there
Yep.
is bullshit. All right. Thanks for watching. We will see you west of Tulsa.